Hey everybody, this is Crowmar with TGN, and I'm here bringing you another World of Warcraft Cataclysm video. Today we're talking about the top 5 worst DPS, or you can call it the bottom 5 if you prefer, but we're talking about the worst DPS currently in PvE. And if you want to know where I'm getting this information from, I'm not just making it up, or going by subjective terms or whatever. What I'm doing is I'm going to worldoflogs.com. That's pretty much the premier site for tracking large amounts of DPS data and healing as well. And I'm going to the rankings for Argoloth 10-man, and that's because there's the most people doing Argoloth, and because he's the most similar to Patchwork. He's like the Patchwork of Cataclysm. That gives me a huge sample size of DPS runs, because it includes both US and EU, and includes Horde and Alliance and all that. So what I do is I just look at each spec one by one. I take the top 40, which is the front page, and I average that. And the reason I take the top 40 is I want to make sure that, really crappy people are kept out of it. We don't want to drag down the DPS because of some crappy people. We want to show what the best players of each spec are capable of doing, and that'll give us an idea of what the spec does. Now, you might argue that at some of the lower end specs, maybe the good players just aren't speccing that. That's possible. And it may turn out that some of these specs are only underperforming because people don't know how to play them. But the thing is, you think there'd be a few, outliers that are doing like 3,000 better. If that were true, you think that there'd be a few people who would figure it out. I don't think so. I mean, some of the ones in the middle maybe, but the ones in the end, the worst ones, they're bad. They're really bad. So, plus they just have design issues, and I want to talk about that in depth. So let's get to the list. Number 5. On the top 5 worst DPS is the Combat Rogue. Now, this surprised me. I thought it was going to be a lot worse. I thought it was going to be number 1 or number 2, to be honest. Combat Rogues are bad. They're really bad in beta. They got a buff, but it didn't do much. It certainly wasn't as good as they promised at BlizzCon, so they were still doing pretty bad. But they did better than I expected. A lot better, actually. They were only slightly below average, only a little bit below average. As a matter of fact, they're really in a different league than the other worst 4. The worst 4, I mean, those are total failures. This one is almost serviceable. It's the worst of the serviceable DPS specs. So this isn't quite as bad as I've said. I've been ragging on it a while since release. If you check our forums or comment posts or whatever, I've been saying to avoid combat. Well, I still say to avoid combat, but it's not quite the disaster that I had pictured it before. So this has been a learning experience, actually. Now, if you're wondering the reason why combat is bad, why it's not average or better, but still serviceable, comes with the mastery. Now, this actually was mentioned in a post by Ghostcrawler recently, and that's part of the inspiration for why I did this video. He was talking about some of the specs that were underpowered, need a buff, and why they need a buff. So I hope that I can add some insight to that. First of all, Ghostcrawler mentioned that the mastery for combat was well designed, but it needed a buff. I don't totally agree. The problem with combat's mastery, which is main gauche, or however you pronounce it, is that when you auto-attack with your main hand, or I'm not sure if it includes specials or not. I'm not 100% sure on that one. But the point is that when you attack with your main hand, you have a small percent chance to proc an extra offhand attack. Now, this obviously favors slow offhands, but combat's built around fast offhands via the old combat potency talent, which is unchanged since it's been around forever. As a matter of fact, in the same post, Ghostcrawler actually mentioned specifically that he wants it to be very clear that combat rogues use fast offhands. Well, so what's the deal with main gauche? Why does main gauche look like it's made for slow offhands? I don't know. That's very counterintuitive, and it needs some work. Maybe not that much work. Maybe they could just change it to be fully normalized so it does the same, so it operates at 1.3 speed no matter what the speed of the weapon is. That might help. Or maybe it just needs a redesign. I don't know. I'm not sure what it needs exactly, but what's clear is it needs some kind of buff because it's very weak. It's one of the weakest masteries in the game, and it's what's dragging down combat rogues right now. There's one other issue with combat rogues besides their actual DPS, which is that they're just freaking boring. They're the most boring class to play in the game right now, probably. I can't think of any off the top of my head that are more boring, except maybe an Arcane Mage. Combat rogues have classically had the most simple and boring rotation in all of WoW, and it's time for that to change. I mean, sure, they've upgraded it slightly. It was just spam Sinister Strike, eviscerate, spam Sinister Strike, eviscerate. Now you have to throw in a Revealing Strike in the middle of that. Combat needs something. Maybe something around the mastery. I don't know. Maybe it just needs a complete redesign. But the Sinister Strike, eviscerate model is outdated, old, and boring. So hopefully combat gets looked at and gets changed significantly. As far as the damage goes, it's almost serviceable. as far as it's almost serviceable. If they just buff the mastery, it would be okay for people who don't mind boring rotation. So with that being said, let's move into the really bad ones. Number 1 through 4 are the complete failures, the complete disasters. They're completely unserviceable ones that need total rework. So let's see what they're up to. Number 4, Arms Warrior. And it hurts me to say this because I really loved Arms during beta. Arms came out at 13,631 average DPS with the top 40 Arms Warriors. Here's what happened. In the beta, when I did some tests in October, it came out very, very nice. Arms came out fantastic. It was one of the highest testing specs. We ran some raids in beta. We ran against Alakir and Argaloth and some other ones, and I was playing a Fury Warrior. Matter of fact, the Alakir video is still up. It's the pre-buff Alakir video from October. In that video, I was playing a Fury Warrior, and we had a Arms Warrior in a guild named Ryuku, a good buddy of mine from WoW, and he out-DPS'd me pretty solid. He did about 15k on Alakir, and it's a movement fight, so it's hard to do DPS on that as melee, and I did about 13k as Fury. We went to Argaloth, he did 16k, I did 14k as Fury. So again, Arms was definitely performing well, and if you could argue maybe they didn't nerf, if it's slightly better than Fury, fine. But the problem was that later in the beta, at the very end of November, right before they closed the beta actually, they nerfed the crap out of Arms. They dropped it by like 25%. It was huge. They nerfed every single ability. They nerfed the Mastery, they nerfed Overpower, Mortal Strike. What did they not nerf? They nerfed everything. They nerfed Slam. They nerfed everything except melee attacks. They probably nerfed that too. I just didn't see it in the patch notes. I mean, it was really brutal. They really hurt Arms. And that sucks. That really sucks because I really liked it when Arms was really awesome. It's a very fun, complicated rotation. It's actually a hard rotation to really master. And I couldn't do it without a mod. I don't know how people would do it without a mod. I had to, track my Rend and track my Colossus Smash and my Sudden Death procs and so on and so forth. Tons of stuff. Now, Ghostcrawler has mentioned he wants to buff Arms, and that's good, but they should have nerfed it to begin with, or if they wanted to nerf it, they should have nerfed it a little bit less. Maybe they were too worried about it being overpowered in PvP. I've heard that it is. I heard that the burst damage is really incredible. I don't have a problem with that. I just think that they should do something. I don't know how, even if it's just buffing Rend, that would make Arms a little bit better. So, right now, don't do Arms in PvE. It's too weak. It's way below average. Average is 16,409, and it's doing 13,000 and change. So, it's way below average. And again, these numbers are with people who are extremely well geared, the top of the spec, against a boss that's almost totally stationary, and it's like ideal numbers. So, moving on from the tragedy of Arms, we get to number 3, Arcane Mage. This one, another one that really surprised me. Why? Because I thought it was going to be number 1. Arcane is terrible. It's a terrible, terrible, terrible spec right now. Ever since they made 2 crucial changes. 1, they changed Arcane Blast so it no longer buffs your Arcane Missiles. That was stupid. Number 2, they changed Arcane Blast so that successive casts get faster when you think they should get slower. Whatever. And the last change they made, I don't remember, did I say 2, did I say 3, whatever. The point is, the last change they made is at 85, everything costs so much mana, DPS heals everything, that Arcane Blast is simply not sustainable. The model of spending more and more mana as you cast, as well as having a mastery that penalizes you for spending more and more mana as you cast, and relying on a spell that causes you to spend more and more mana as your primary spell, it's just stupid. It's just plain stupid. It needs to be reworked. Everything about Arcane is screwed up right now. It's bad for motion fights. Okay, you get Arcane Barrage. It sucks, and it's on a 3-second cooldown. It's not instant, and it's not as good as... It's like a crappier Ice Lance. If you get a couple Arcane Blasts charged up and you have to move, and it falls off before you can cast it again. It's stupid. It's just a badly designed spec. It's crap. Stay away from it. You run out of mana too fast, and your mastery is useless. Fortunately, I will say that Mages did fine in other places. Frost, of course, is great in PvP, and Fire did very well in PvE. So, Mages are not a lost cause. It's just Arcane is dead for now. So, forget about Arcane. Moving on, number 2, worst DPS spec in PvE at the moment. Number 2, Marksmanship Hunter at 12,854 average DPS. Top 40 on Argaloth, according to worldoflogs.com. That is bad. Bad. We're getting into the 12k range now. Everything is screwed up about marksmanship right now. It's just untenable. I mean, Steady Shot sucks, and the whole spec is built around Steady Shot. What's up with that? Chimera Shot, way too weak. Way too weak to be the primary shot. I mean, look how much worse it is than Explosive Shot. It's just unforgivable. It's just no good. And there's nothing else, and that's it. That's the whole spec. It's like Steady Shot and Chimera Shot and Arcane Shot spam to get rid of your focus, and that's it. It's a very boring spec. It has no real redeeming features, and it doesn't test well. It just does very poor DPS, so what the hell's the point? So marksmanship is just... It needs some help. It needs improvements to steady shot big time. It needs improvements to Chimera Shot big time. It needs something. At least I will say the mastery is pretty good. Wild Quiver is serviceable, so that's not a problem. I don't know how much more I can say about marksmanship. It's not a spec that I'm, committed to or whatever. In the beta, I played survival primarily as hunter, and unlike the other specs, as a combat rogue, I played a combat rogue in vanilla, so I'm really sad that combat is so bad. Arms Warrior, again, in beta was really impressive, and I was really looking forward to that being a viable spec, so disappointed about that. And Arcane is just a joke, so I like making fun of it. Marks, I could take it or leave it. I could just pretend it doesn't exist and be okay, because hunters are fine. They got survival, and they'll be okay without marksmanship. But despite that, I do hope Blizzard fixes it sooner or later. But I'm going to move on to number 1, the worst spec in the game for PvE. It is, drumroll please. I'm not going to do a simulated drumroll, so you can just do one in your head. The number 1 worst spec in PvE, lowest DPS of all, is Beastmaster Hunter. Yes, the Hunter has the number 1 and number 2 worst DPS slot. Congratulations, Hunters. Beastmaster is an abysmal failure. Here's why. I did my tests in the beta way back in October or September. I can't remember. It was a long time ago. And when I did that test, I found out from testing that Kill Command was actually weaker than Arcane Shot, to the point where it was a DPS loss to use Kill Command. How crazy is that? It's Beastmaster. You're supposed to be relying on your beast for DPS, and the one signature ability is weaker than Arcane Shot, which every spec has. They haven't fixed it. They buffed Kill Command. It's still too weak. It's just too weak. It's supposed to be their primary ability, and it sucks. That's the main problem. Cobra Shot is great. I like Cobra Shot. No problem with that. But that's it. That's all they got. I will say this. Beast Mastery does have a redeeming factor besides its crappy DPS. It does have the wide variety of exotic pets that bring all kinds of crazy buffs, including core hounds and their hysteria. The T-Rexes, what are they called? The Devil Swords bring the rampage buff. They also bring Immortal Strike. That's not a big deal anymore. It's only 10%, but at least they have both. So I would actually really like to see Beast Mastery get fixed. That's one of the ones I really want to see fixed because I really want all those cool exotic pets to be useful. I really want Kill Command to do the serious damage it deserves to do. They need to buff the pets a little bit. They just need to buff the Beastmaster overall. The major cooldowns aren't powerful enough anymore. Beast Within, when they first came out, Fire Truck was like ridiculously overpowered, and they nerfed into the ground, so it's barely anything anymore. It's too bad. So yeah, Beast Mastery, 12,402 average DPS. It's no good. So, in conclusion, I want to reiterate that these numbers all come from worldoflogs.com. All I did was the very simple task of taking the top 40 DPS on Argoloth for each spec, putting them in a list, taking the average, and sorting them to get the top 5 worst. Now you're probably thinking, well, wait a minute, where's my spec fall on the list? I'm going to publish the list on the forums, wow.tgn.tv, in the general discussion forum. I'm going to put a post in the general discussion, and I'd like you to reply to it. Tell me what you think about the numbers. Are you surprised, disappointed? Do you think the numbers are wrong? Please discuss them. I'm also interested in what you think about what can be changed to fix the specs. If it's something simple like just making one spell better, that's great, but is it a design problem? Do they need an overhaul? What's the deal? Do you agree or disagree with me about Arcane, for example? Do you think it needs to be overhauled, or do you think they just need to make Arcane Blast cost less mana? What do you think they need to do? That's what I want to know. I want to know your opinions. So, come to wow.tgn.tv forums, general discussion, get the full list, see where you stand. And my next video will be top 5 best DPS. So if you see the list now, you can get some spoilers, find out what the top 5 are, and then hear my thoughts about them later. Or if you don't want to go to the forums, you hear the top 5, but you won't ever hear the middle. So go to the forums if you want to see the middle, if you want to see where your spec falls. Well, that's all for today. Thank you for watching. My name is Cromar with TGN. And as always, I'm asking you to please rate, please comment, and please subscribe.